My next guest came from humble beginnings, yet he managed to build a company that had over 400 employees and annual sales of over $1 billion. To the outside world, he was very successful, but inside, he was feeling unhappy, spiritually confused, and yet he set on a journey to transform his life. Wait till you hear his story right after this. What is mindset? Our mindset is based on what we believe, and anything we believe in, we put into motion. I have spent my life putting the mindset of perseverance into motion, and now I am here today to share my journey along with others whose mindsets have changed the course of their lives. Hi, I'm mindset coach Lorraine Lindsey, and I believe that if you can change your mind, you have the power to change your life. So are you ready? Welcome back to another episode of The Mindsetters, where we believe that if you can change your mind, you have the power to change your life. I am your host, Coach Lorraine Lindsey, a certified peak performance and life coach. And today I am super excited to be talking to another powerful mindset-driven individual. My next guest is Danny Morel, and a little bit about Danny for those who do not yet know who this man is. Danny is a world-renowned business strategist and entrepreneur turned life coach and spiritual guide. His companies have been featured on the Inc. 500 and Inc. 5000 lists as some of the fastest growing companies in America. Danny began as a real estate mogul, building his business up to $1.1 billion in annual sales before finding his true calling. Since then, Danny has helped thousands of people around the world unlock their true potential through coaching programs, live seminars, and podcast episodes that instill the very principles he followed as he built a leveraged business. For more than 2 decades, countless people have enjoyed the guidance, connection, and transformational power of Danny's teaching. Danny has discovered the bridge between business and spirituality, true abundance in your finances, relationships, and health. He has taught thousands how to achieve this. It has worked for them, and now it will work for you. Danny, thank you so much for gracing us with your amazing, abundant presence. How are you?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. Thank you. So I want to tell you a little bit about how I discovered you. It started with me seeing one of your reels on Instagram, actually. And when I was watching this, I was, of course, intrigued and captivated. And I said, who is this man? Because his message is so the platform in which I share a message. And yet you just have this really beautiful, unique way of sharing. And so I started exploring and researching and realizing that, just like myself, there is this incredible journey of how you got there. And a lot of times people watch people like yourself and they're inspired and they're intrigued, but they see the end all be all, so to speak, and they feel as though their life is not as attainable as your life is. So take us on the journey. This is the whole reason why I wanted to meet with you and talk to you, is for you to share your journey of how you actually got to this space in your life.
Yeah. So first off, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. And, it's really interesting. It's interesting because as you were reading, the bio and doing all of that, I started to get really uncomfortable, to be honest with you. And I started to get really uncomfortable because, if I can be brutally honest with you, Lorraine, none of that matters.
Right.
It's like, and I say that from the bottom of my heart, like none of that matters. There was once a point in time in my life where all of that mattered, where, the amount of money or the business or the success, where all of that was important to me.
Right.
And then I went on a spiritual journey. And to answer your question, that's where my journey began is, I went on this journey where I was this mindset driven guy. And I was all about, making it happen and finding a way and grinding and building. And I was the normal, motivational speaker kind of guy. And I had built a business, a billion in sales, 40 million in revenue, 400 people. And when I got to the top, my mom passed away. And when my mom passed away, it brought me to my knees because I realized in that moment in my life that while I was, good at, building a business and leading people and inspiring people. I was terrible at loving my mother. You
Mm.
know, I was terrible, and I was terrible at loving my mother. And that led me to realize that I was terrible at loving my children. And that made me realize that at that time I was a terrible husband.
So it
And I
took you
realized
down
that all
this.
of this was as a result of me just being terrible at loving myself.
Right, right. I
And that's the truth of it. That's the truth of it. And then I started going on a journey where I really wanted to know the truth about life. I really wanted to know the truth about God. I really wanted to know the truth about, what it takes to be happy and be balanced. We go to so many seminars and they make you do a little pie chart, and they make you, type in the different areas of life:
right.
money, health,
I call it the
spirituality, finance.
I get it now what. And it's interesting you say what you say because again, similar story in me having struggles with I lost a parent to suicide, and then it caused a paradigm shift in my family, and then just a spiral thing, and then really having judgment and opinions of my mother, and really having to learn to say to myself, but who is the woman? Who was she? If I met her as a stranger and she wanted to tell me her story, how would I receive that story without this cloak of her being a mother to me and what I felt that mother should be? So it's interesting you say that, but I want to kind of take it all the way back to New York where you were born. So you were born in New York, you had immigrant parents, your mother was from Ecuador, your father from the Dominican Republic, and you're there for 13 years and you have your first seemingly big paradigm shift when your parents divorce. So take us there and what that was for you, because that is kind of like what seems to have stemmed this whole growth of who you are, because you could have went in so many different directions having experience at the impressionable age of 13. So take us there.
Yeah. So I was 13 years old, and when my parents split up, essentially what happened was my mother had a sister in California, and so she took us three boys. I was the oldest, and she took us and she moved us to California. Um, and there was a moment where, I remember us leaving. And I remember us being in this small pickup truck, and I had my dog. It was a German Shepherd, and
Hmm.
I took my dog. And as my father was like approaching the window, I remember my mom was on my left hand side. I'm the oldest. I'm right by the window, and I put the dog up to my father as to like keep him away from us, basically, and as
Mm.
to like protect my my family, for what I, or at least that's what I thought. And so, when I got to California and I was 13 years old, I started driving us around because my mother was too nervous to drive. And we lived in a terrible neighborhood. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. And that's where I created this thought that pressure is a privilege, because I was under a lot of pressure as a 13-year-old boy. I was under a lot of pressure to drive us around because my mother didn't know how to drive. I was under a lot of pressure to be the man of the house
Mm.
because my father was no longer around. And I was under a lot of pressure to figure out a way how to get us out of the ghetto. And the reality is that though pressure was a privilege, or at least that's what the mind thinks, it tore my heart up and it tore my soul up, and it didn't allow me to be a boy.
So let me
Because in
ask
that
you.
moment, I had to become a man.
Yeah.
And I think that that's one of the issues
Hmm.
with high drivers and A-type personalities, is
Absolutely.
that they're always all about mindset, and they're all about driving, and they're about figuring it out. But to be honest, if I was to get deep with you, like, you mentioned your mom's suicide, but
My father. Yeah.
Lorraine, there's a lot of healing there for you. There's a
Right.
lot of healing there for you that you as a woman need to explore, because it's keeping you from your feminine.
No,
It's
absolutely.
keeping you,
And it was actually my father. But you're right, though. It was something that was a shift. I tell the story from a different position now, right? I look at the story as a story. I'm not attached to it, or I don't create the emotional attachments to it. Um, but I do truly understand because I was the oldest in my family. And that was something where when we experienced it, my mother then began to spiral. and down a pathway of depression and, trying to make attempts on her life because she was mourning the loss of her love. Although he was a very abusive person, she had an attachment to it. And so you're right, there was this responsibility that created this masculine energy for me. And I do want to get into that with you because I know you speak a lot about it, which I really love. And I think it's so powerful that people understand this masculine and feminine energy. Um, but going back to the 13-year-old that's, now the head, the man of the house, so to speak, and you having this pressure understanding, but what was it at 13? Because I mean, listen, you completely moved from New York. You're all the way on the other side of the country. Just in that alone, it was just a different experience. And your life is shifting. There's a paradigm shift. You could have easily went down a different pathway. So what do you feel like, or what do you understand today that 13-year-old understood? Because I mean, 13 pushed you into like, I'm going to have a house. I'm going to be the first homeowner. You bought a home at 21 for your family. What was that driving force in you that catapulted you in that direction as opposed to going in the other direction?
Yeah, it's so interesting because I shared a message on Instagram recently, and I said something along the lines of a man needs to be able to provide not just financially,
Hmm.
but emotionally, spiritually, physically, right? That is what an awakened man is able to provide for a woman. And we get so many comments on our content. And one of the ladies said, "I've only seen this in the movies."
Mm,
Right? I don't know men to be emotionally available. I've only seen this in the movies, and so I don't know this to be true. And she asked me a question about it, and my response was the following, and would be my response for everybody. What drove me at the time was this thought: when I would look at movies and I would look at the life that was being lived in movies, when I looked at the money they were making, when I looked at the homes that the characters were living in, but most importantly, when I looked at the love that they were sharing with their partner,
hmm.
I thought at a very young age, I don't care what I have to do, but if that life is available in the movies, I want that life to be available to me in my real life as well. And where most people mess up in life, or where most people have a difficult time in life, is that they're so easily entertained by the movies.
Right.
They're so easily entertained by TV shows, right? And they get trapped literally for their entire lives until they're 70, 80, 90 years old. And then they're gone.
Right.
And they never lived life to their fullest potential. And so when you ask me what was it for me, is that at a very young age, I simply looked at the movies. And when I looked at the Notebook, I told myself, I'm either going to have that or I'm going to be by myself for my
Mm,
entire life. And where most people mess up is they'll go and they'll look at the Notebook and they'll go, oh, that must be nice. They'll get entertained for a little bit and then they settle.
right.
And when you settle in your love relationship, you settle in your health, in your relationship with your body, and you settle in your finances, because settling is an energy. You don't just settle in one area of your life. If you look deep enough, you're actually settling in every area of your life, because that energy is permeating in your mind, your heart, your soul, and eventually that affects your body.
Absolutely.
And this is what happens with
Absolutely.
human beings.
It's a trifecta, right? I years ago I was a EMT and I took fire science courses. I was a volunteer firefighter and explorer. And one of the things that I learned, and I talk about this when I coach and teach people, is there are only three components in order for you to extinguish a fire or start a fire. And that's heat, fuel, and oxygen. And
Mm.
so the question then is for people, what is it going to take for you to ignite your fire? And so it's the mind, the body, the spirit. And you talk about this when you talk about the three keys to freedom. So you want to kind of tap into your three keys of freedom, which you've already kind of touched on just now.
Yeah, so all human beings are here on a journey. We're here on a spiritual journey.
Hmm.
Right now, we happen to live in a very masculine world. And when I say that, what I mean by that is that we happen to live in a very thought-based world, right? And in reality, we don't ever connect to our heart and our soul. And when we connect to our heart and our soul, and we connect to the spiritual world, we start to realize that as human beings, there are three energies that we have to live in and either master or run away from. And the first one is the energy of money.
Mm,
And so we have to master the energy of money because money is simply energy. And many people, when they're poor because they're poor in energy, they're poor in spirit.
right.
And so they'll look at a rich person, or they'll look at someone who lives in a beautiful home, or they'll look at someone who gets to travel all over the place, and they'll say something like, must be nice.
Right.
And immediately when they say those words, what they're actually saying is I'm not connected to the true power within myself, right? So that's money. The second energy of human mastery is sex, right? I know most men, they don't really understand sex. Sex is what creates life.
Mm,
And yet, for like most men, for example, and this is only because we're disconnected from our hearts and our feminine, we utilize or we look at sex as an action to give us what it is that we need,
mm,
right? And that's why you see a lot of men that struggle with this, and men can never be faithful or can never be with just one woman, is because sex is very emotional as well,
right.
right? And so it's the same thing with women. When a woman is in her masculine energy, she has difficulties in the act of having sex. Her body doesn't open up. It doesn't lubricate the way that it should naturally because she's closed up. She's living from the power of her mind.
Right.
And if she's living from the power of her mind, she's living in her masculine energy. There is no space for her body to open, follow me, for her heart and her soul to then allow her body to open to other masculine energy. And
Right.
that's why sex is not pleasing for a lot of women. And this is why sex for a lot of women is causing their bodies to react in ways that causes the very thing that created their life to be painful and harmful to them.
Mm,
So this is the second energy is sex. And the third energy of human mastery is food, our relationship with food, right? Because food is for many people it's like a drug, right? It was for me for many years. I
mhm.
was 50 pounds overweight. And so what I didn't notice was that I was emotionally disconnected from my thoughts, from my feelings, from my emotions. And therefore I looked for food to crave that thing that was happening inside of me. So I was quite frankly a slave to food because I was a slave to my cravings, because I was a slave to my emotions, because I hadn't mastered that relationship with my own emotions, right? And when you master your relationship with your emotions, then you can harness your ability to master your relationship with food. And that's when we can finally achieve our dream body and our dream life, because many people can live to be 100.
Right.
110 years old. The human body can live to be 120 years old or more.
Right.
The reason why we're all dying at 50, 60, and 70 years old is because we have unhealed emotions that lead to improper nutrition, that leads to our body metastasizing and creating illness. If
Absolutely.
you heal your emotion and you heal the energy that is happening within yourself, you can heal disease and you can heal illness. And I've seen it with my own eyes.
I love that. And it's so true. I have a friend of mine who's a wellness coach, and she always says the issues are in the tissues. And I follow a lot of like Joe Dispenza and neurotransmission and neuroplasticity and understanding the power in what you just said as far as the relationship with food and the mindset behind it, because it's not just about looking physically fit. I mean,
No, no.
that's an outcome to it, but it's just what it does to you and how powerful that is.
Well, I'd like to share something. And this is where, like, the bodybuilding industry, for example, right?
Okay.
The bodybuilding industry is one of the industries that if you could just step away from it for a moment and look at the industry itself, right? And many people get mad at me when I share the truth, but it's the honest to
But
God truth. The
I
body,
was in this space, so I definitely want to hear what you have to
okay,
say. Yes.
okay. Well, the bodybuilding industry is filled with darkness. It's filled with darkness because if you think about it, you spend a year or whatever the case may be, you know, overeating, putting ungodly amounts of animals inside of yourself, right? Which
Hmm.
have to be wreaking your stomach, wreaking havoc on your stomach, putting ungodly amounts of injections and steroids into yourself. It's the most unloving thing that you can possibly do. By the way, for what? For what?
For vanity.
To then step on a stage
Right.
for 10
Judgment.
minutes, 10 minutes at that, to walk around to get applauded and get cheers based off of your physical experience, and then to get handed a plastic trophy for a moment to take pictures, and then they walk you off stage like cattle, by the way, and then they bring on another group. And I'm only saying this because I've been there and I've seen it myself. And I'm only saying this because I used to work in a bodybuilding store. So you see, when you finally wake up and look at the spiritual components of why you do what it is that you do, you realize that you're killing yourself with all the animals. You're killing yourself with all the ejections, and you're killing yourself all because there are unhealed emotions within yourself that are craving external validation.
Absolutely.
They're craving external appreciation and admiration for your external appearance.
Absolutely.
It's the greatest sign that you have no idea who you are, what your heart is, or what God is, to be honest with you.
So
And
then
this
let
is
me
what
ask you
drives me
this,
crazy.
Danny.
I'm gonna tell you straight up,
Okay,
one more
go ahead.
second. This is what drives me crazy. It drives me crazy where like massive bodybuilders who are filled with steroids, right, can utter the words like God says. You have no idea what God says, because God is not death. God is not killing. God is not injecting yourself. God is life and love. God is life and love.
Right. So my question then for you is, I'm going to circle back. I'm going to, you're here, you've got these profound messages, but there's a journey that you had, and 2016, your mother passes away, and you also, it spiraled you into all of these emotional questions, questioning God, questioning why. And it led you to a point of total breakdown. What was that breakdown for you, and how did you know that it was? When we saw, you used the term on your bio as rock bottom. How did you know that it was your rock bottom, and what did you actually do to come out of that? Because
Yeah, I'll
a
tell
lot of
you.
people are there, and some people don't know how to identify their rock bottom.
Yeah. Okay. You're gonna have to excuse me because I don't know how to skirt around the truth, and so I'm very direct with what I say.
Please.
But I say it because I want to help people. I want to help free human beings. You know, you know what my rock bottom was? Here was my rock bottom. My rock bottom was my mom passed away in my arms.
Mm.
My rock bottom was I lived in a beautiful 6,000 custom Italian Tuscan home. My rock bottom was that I had built the business that everybody said I should build. My rock bottom was that I had the brand new cars and the gold Rolexes. And my rock bottom was the fact that I was miserably married at the time. And I always was from day one. I just didn't have the courage to speak and listen to my truth.
Mm.
My rock bottom was that my mom died of cancer. My rock bottom, that was while my mom was dying of cancer, she went to church every single week like she was told to do. My rock bottom was that my mom, while she was dying of cancer, still had faith that God was going to come and save her. And my rock bottom was looking at all of this going, wait a minute, if there's anyone that deserves for God to come and save her, it's my mom.
Mm.
It's my mom. It's my beautiful mom. Why is she going through this? And it caused me to start asking so many questions. And this is when I was going to tell you, this is where I have to just be honest with you. This is what got me out of the world of living from mindset.
Gotcha.
You understand that?
Yeah.
Because mindset got me everything that I wanted back then, but it was keeping me from the one thing I truly needed, which was connection to my heart. And so when I saw all of that, I went on a journey and I thought, wait a minute, this is all bullshit. It's all bullshit. I'm on stage. People are coming to my seminars. People are coming to see me. People are coming to see Ed Milet at my show, and A-Rod at my show, and Kobe Bryant at my show, and Rob Dyrdek at my show. And this is all bullshit. I just want famous people around me so that I can feel good about myself.
Well, that's a breakthrough right there. That's
It
real.
is.
So when
It's
you
all
say
bullshit.
it's bullshit, elaborate. What do you mean by that? What was
All of
the
it.
bullshit? Was it you standing out and seeing self and saying, because everything in my mind, just to kind of challenge the concept a little bit, is mindset. But it's, what is the mindset? What are you believing? right? And so I see it so often, to your point, where people are on these platforms and they're spitting this positive, motivational, so on and so forth. And I see the bullshit in what you're talking about. So I want you to kind of elaborate with that. This is why I've always been very transparent on my own journey, my setbacks, the emotional rawness, because it's just an identity construct that I'm sharing. So what do you
Yeah.
mean by the bullshit?
Yeah, I mean, it's this world that we live in. It's the matrix. It's a 3D
Hmm.
system where we are all programmed to believe that because someone is successful, because someone makes a lot of money, because someone, is driven, that they are better than other people.
Right.
Let's just face it, right?
Hmm.
It's because someone is a celebrity, they're better than someone that is not. And so many human beings are living in this construct where we're constantly looking to become someone other than we are.
Right.
And what I realized, I'll tell you what happened was I went on a deep spiritual journey. I left church because church is not where it's at. Church is, it's the greatest lie to humanity. I left church. I disconnected myself from the system when the pastor looked me in my eyes and told me the words, if you make the decision to get a divorce, you will lose all of God's blessings from your life. Now, listen, I didn't know a lot back then like I know now, but in that moment, here's what I did know. I did know that is not love. That's manipulation. And if the leader of this church can manipulate me in that way, then this is exactly why I have to make this decision. I've got to make this decision because everything inside of me is telling me that this is my path. Even though it might anger some people, even though it might frustrate some people, even though the pastor, the guy that I look up to, is telling me these words because he's run out of words to tell me.
Hmm.
He's run out of ways to manipulate me. There is something going on here that I am not awake to and that the world is not awakened to, and I want to go discover what that is.
And how
And
did
that's
you do
called the
that?
truth.
How did you do that? How did you know where to go, what to do, what was next? How did you know?
Well, you see, that's the thing, Lorraine, is that we're so caught up in this idea of how did you know?
Right.
This is mindset. You're so powerful as a human being that when you are ready to discover the truth about yourself and about life, you don't need to know. You literally, your energy, your soul power from within attracts the right people, the right circumstances, everything that you need. This is literally called what us human beings have called the law of attraction.
Hmm.
Bullshit. It's the law of you. You are the creator of your life. You have been creating the entire story the entire time to eventually lead you to a place where you reconnect to your heart. And so that's what happened to me, is that I finally said enough is enough. Enough is
And I
enough.
get that. And I get that. And I totally, when I tell you I get it on levels that you could not imagine, because I'm on that journey as well. It's very interesting, the parallels here. But I am speaking and asking the questions for people who don't get where you're at
Yeah.
presently,
So
right?
so
And
then
so when you said it's not about how, maybe for you the why was compelling enough. But for
yeah,
people,
so
how do they get there? Like for them.
yeah. So well, what happened at the time was for about 10 years prior,
Okay.
I had heard about this medicine called ayahuasca.
Oh yes.
And for 10 years, I heard about ayahuasca. And I used to say ayahuasca was evil. Ayahuasca was the devil. Ayahuasca was, terrible. And I was that guy. I was the Bible thumping, like, no way. That's for those crazy people. That's for those hippies, right?
Hmm.
And then finally, when I was at my wits' end, I was like, I'm in. Like whatever I have to do, I'm in. And be careful. Be careful, because when you're finally ready for the truth, God, the universe, will bring you the truth. So sure enough, I'm looking on Instagram one day and I see my friend and I see him happy and smiling in ways that I've never seen him smile before. And we happen to talk and I go, "What's up? You were really happy on New Year's Eve. What was going down there? What was going on there?" And he said, "Oh man, I went on an ayahuasca retreat." And you know what I said? I said, "I'm in."
Mm.
I said, I don't care the cost. I don't care what I have to do, because where I'm at right now in life is nowhere. So I'm in, right? And so sure enough, that's where I went, and that's where my journey began. That's where I had my first spiritual experience. And that's where I woke up to the truth. And that is that we're all love. We're all one. We're all on a journey. And I just happen to have the courage to go deeper in that journey. And so, 9 ceremonies later with ayahuasca, well, pardon me, 12 ceremonies later, 9 with psilocybin mushrooms, you finally get to a space where you're awakened.
Mm.
And what I mean by becoming awakened, you get to the space where you literally start getting messages and downloads and healing from source, from God, and it transforms your life forever, because you're open. You're an open spiritual channel now. And when that happens, Lorraine, I'm sorry, but forget mindset, forget everything. You're just in another dimension, and you're just drawing into your
Well,
life
you're just
whatever it is that
being, right?
you're just being. That's
Right.
it. You're just being. Yeah.
So then to challenge you a little bit, how would you, for people who have, see, I believe that, and this is my belief, that everybody has a pathway to God, however they choose to get there. Some
Yeah.
people pathway is to not believe, right? In all different facets. And I'm always intrigued, and I'm always have an openness without judgment to people's pathways through their life. So when you're saying things like, the religion's this and the Bible is this, or, that, those type of things, some would argue and say, well, is he saying that because he had these experiences? And how could he say that that's not my truth? So how do you combat that when those are things that people would be maybe offended by or wanting to know?
Well, yeah, no, I appreciate that. The first thing I would say is that I wouldn't combat anything,
Hmm.
because there is no right or wrong.
Correct.
When I was that guy, I was right.
Hmm.
And I believed with everything in my heart. I was right. So if that's the case, like what the thing is that what is true is what is true to you,
Right.
right? Just picture it this way. When it comes to life, there's a whole bunch of layers. There's a whole bunch of layers, right? And these layers, based off of the energy that we live in,
Hmm.
we get stuck in those layers. So for example, this is what I teach at my event, and this is what I help people through, is like, let's say if you had an experience where as a young boy or as a young girl, for example, you were abused, or someone passed away, or someone mistreated you, or whatever the case may be.
Hmm.
You don't realize this, but you could be living in the energies of shame and guilt.
Absolutely.
Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, because sometimes, like when divorces happen, kids could look at that and they go, "Oh, it was all my fault," and then they create a story in their head
Correct.
that their parents' divorce was all their fault. Or sometimes people pass away, or a little girl could be running across the street to chase her brother, and a car hits her, and the brother now has a story in his head that, oh my God, my little sister passed away. It was all my fault. This is called guilt.
And
You
that's
follow me?
true. And I'm going to interrupt you real quick because I've done my work. But at the time, you're right. When my father took his life, there was a narrative that I told myself because I had a dream that he had passed, and I told him the dream. A week before he died, he took his life.
Mm.
And he told me he would be in my life forever. You're going to grow up and be a beautiful woman. I'm always going to be there.
Yes,
And
yes.
and so, a week later, 10 years old, we go to the park and I hit him on the swing, right? He's swinging me and I accidentally hit him. And then by the next day he's gone. He took his life. And as a young girl, not really understanding the sophistication of someone ending their life and what that really entails, I, to your point, thought it was my fault. And I lived, excuse me, in that shame and that guilt for so long because I was like, if I had not told him the dream, if I didn't kick him on the swing, my daddy wouldn't have left me. And I
That's right.
really had to do a lot of emotional work and really have that conversation with that little girl to let her know that it was not her fault. And that was his journey and his story, and really being able to separate that narrative. Because to your point again, these traumas, these things that you happen, it creates these identity constructs, these suits of armors, if you will.
That's
And
right.
it turned into these personality traits that I thought um, was helping me because it made me become an incredibly high achiever and be very, very
Absolutely.
successful,
Okay, now we're getting to it. Now we're
but
getting to it.
miserable on the inside,
Now, see,
right?
now we're talking.
Yes.
Now we're talking. Yeah.
So I get that.
So then Lorraine, and then watch this for a moment. So when we're living in that energy,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yep.
only certain truths and only certain experiences can enter our life from
Right.
that energy.
Absolutely.
You understand that?
Absolutely, I do. Yep.
Okay. Now watch what happens. Whether we realize it or not, and at Awaken, I help people go through this process.
Hmm.
Whether we realize it or not, that energy, right, is all lying under the energy of force. Force.
Hmm.
So everything that I created, my billion-dollar business, my powerful empire, all of that was all from force.
Right.
Because in my life, I was missing love.
Hmm.
You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, I do.
So
100%.
then, so then watch this. In the middle is this energy called courage. So when the pastor looked at me in my eyes and said, if you make this decision, you will lose all of God's blessings in your life. And everything that I knew to be true hung in that moment right there. Lorraine, do you know what that took for me to go,
It took
there's
courage.
got to be something else? It took courage.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
so from that courage, guess what happened? Boom. I came into the different energy section, which is called power.
Mm.
Because a true human being, when they are truly in their power, they are aligned in, yes, a powerful mindset, absolutely,
Hmm.
but an open and loving heart, and in their body.
The
Okay.
trifecta.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
it, right? It's mind, heart, soul, body. All of these three energies are in this human body, right? And this is where you see that human beings end up living so long. It's because they're happy, they're
They're-
joyful, they're
Right.
healed,
It's
and their bodies
fulfillment.
are all working in beautiful motion. And this is also where you see that human beings pass away so early because their
Mm.
body can't handle it, right?
Right.
And so when you say to me and you ask me, well, how do you like combat that? You don't. You don't. People are going to believe what they need to believe until they're ready to no longer believe,
Right.
until they're ready to seek out the
I
truth.
call it the surrender, when they're ready for the surrender.
That's it.
So my question then for you, and I, again, I'll give you a little bit of a backstory. You know, I was in the corporate world of gaming and casinos. I was a big top executive, and my job was to go after all the whales, everybody that was, you know, $1 million plus type players. And I
Yeah.
remember, this is when I had that like breakthrough for myself. It was the fourth quarter of the year, and there was this monster player, and I watched him lose $10 million in 4 hours. And everybody is cheering for me because I moved the needle that quarter. And how did you get this guy in? And it was the lowest time I felt in my entire career, even though on the outside, it was seemingly the highest level of success. And the reason why I felt that way is because I looked at this man, I knew his backstory, I knew how he came into his abundance of wealth, and he had a lot of money, and he loathed his money. I remember he would say to me, do you know how many weddings I get invited to? And I was like, well, how many? He goes, all of them. When I was this young kid in this small little town in Italy and I had nothing, I was more happy. And that's when I started to realize and pay attention to all of these people where there was these abundant private jets and extravagant lives. And they were all very, very unhappy people.
That's right. That's right.
So take us there, because this is kind of your journey. You were this high
Right.
achieving, outwardly successful person,
Hmm.
but miserable inside. And so you have this experience, and then you get this breakthrough and this ultimate surrender. How do
Yeah.
you, when you're teaching people and coaching people and inspiring people, how do you get them to be in that space and remove themselves from that identity construct because they're so attached to it?
Yeah. I don't.
Mm.
What I do now, and Lorraine, I got to be honest with you. Like, I feel called. Where do you live? Do you live in Vegas?
Yeah.
What are you doing March 23rd to 25th?
Ironically, I am going to be in Dallas for a surprise birthday party for my son's grandmother. She's turning, or great grandmother. She's turning 90. So yeah, I'm going to be in the Dallas area.
Okay, you need to come to Awaken.
I'd love
And I'm
to.
going to tell you, and I tell you this from my heart.
Okay.
I tell you this from my heart. I feel you. I feel you. You've come a long way, but there's so much inside of you that is yet to, like, there's a softness to you. And that softness to you is waiting to be explored, and it's waiting to shine.
Yeah, I agree
And the
with that.
world needs to see that side of you as well. And I think that you've had to be so hard for so long because of what happened, that it's time for you to come face to face with that, you know? And I know that that's scary. Trust me, I know. But when you ask me, you know, what do I do when I coach people? I
Mhm.
don't. I don't. I literally just take people into the depths of their heart and soul, because it's not about me. They don't need me. Nobody needs me. Nobody needs you. Nobody.
Right.
What they need is themselves. They need to reconnect to themselves. And so we use some really profound techniques that cause people to have the same type of healing experiences that you would have with a substance like plant medicine,
Mhm.
just by using the power of the mind and their breath. And we'd spend 3 days of doing this at my event, and it literally, it transforms lives. It's like you can't even do in 3 days what people would do in 30 years of therapy. That's how powerful it is.
I love that. I love that that's your gift that you're giving. You have and thank you. I would be honored to go. I would absolutely, I'm very, at this stage in my life, at this point in my life, I have such an openness and I have such a trust.
Let's do it.
I trust self so much so that whatever comes my way, whatever paths I cross, I just really trust it. So I'm very open and I would love to experience that. I absolutely would love it.
Yeah.
Couple questions, more questions for you because I know that your time is precious, as all
Yeah.
of our time is.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
Tell us a little bit about Inner Circle, and you kind of touched on it, and then you've also got your relationship mastery intensive. So tell the audience out there a little bit about those programs, and then I have a few like questions, like deep questions to ask you after.
Yeah, yeah, sure. And just so you know, I'm texting my team right now. Let's get Lorraine a free VIP ticket. So
Aw,
they're on it. Okay.
you're so awesome.
Well, so here's what happened is that Inner Circle is my program. It's for people who want to have it all. Because Lorraine, what happened to me was, okay, I had all the money, but I was miserable,
Right.
right? And I knew I wanted to be in a relationship again someday. But I didn't want to be in a relationship where I was disconnected with my partner.
Hmm.
So I knew that I had to first find relationship with myself,
Right.
right? And so that meant recalibrating, Lorraine, my masculine and my feminine.
Mm.
It meant almost dropping away from that masculine, that desire, that whole like go out there and make it happen, and dropping into my heart.
Mm.
And I did that for 3 years. And I'm going to tell you straight out what happened. What happened was I no longer wanted to work. I was no longer motivated.
Yeah, I could relate.
I sold my company. I was kind of done. I was kind of chilling, right? And that's what happens when you're in your feminine, whether you're a man or a woman, you kind of just want to relax,
Yeah.
right? Because you're open to receiving life now. It's the
Right.
same way like with a man and a woman. When a woman is ready for sex, she is open to receiving. These are the feminine qualities, right?
Right.
And then I finally got to a space where I recalibrated both. And listen, I'm going to tell you now, as a human being who has gone to the deepest parts of spirituality and has journeyed, and I could legitimately say I know everything from past lives to how to connect you when you're ready to speak to your father. I can help you connect with him. There's no more barriers, right? I finally got to a space where I started to realize that when you have true abundance in your life, you realize that this life is your journey,
Hmm.
and you get to create from this journey whatever it is that you want. And
Absolutely.
so, yeah, we're going to make a lot of money, but we're going to do it not attached to the money. We're going to do it because we are here to serve human beings
Right.
and help human beings. And there's wonderful people like yourself who we can help literally to have it all, have the money, have deep spiritual connection, have wonderful relationship.
Right.
And that's the people in inner circle, is the people who've mastered the money stuff already, right?
Hmm.
But they're like, fuck, the rest of my life is a mess.
Right. And there's a lot
I,
of them.
there's a
Yes, there
lot of
is.
them. That's right.
Yes, yes,
And
yes,
it's like,
yes.
and that was me. That was me. So we help people lose the weight that they want to lose, get reconnected with their spouse, and then build a leveraged business, because I don't believe we should be working more than 20 hours a week, quite frankly. I believe we should be making, two, three, four, five, $6, $7 million a year, working 20 hours a week. And I'm a living example of that could happen
Hmm.
when you find your true power and you're working from power, not force.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so the questions I have for you, you ready? All
Yeah,
right, question number one.
go.
What has been your greatest lesson for your life so far?
My greatest lesson in my life so far, and the greatest lesson there is to learn, there's two of them.
Okay.
And that is that we are all one.
Mm,
Like Lorraine, like I tell you, I'm just sending you my love because I love you, because you're me.
thank you.
You're literally me. You're just a female version of me.
I feel the same way. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, that's all it is, right? And so all of our stories, right? If you really want to trip out, all of our stories are all somewhat similar.
Right.
Somewhat similar. It's just what I'm able to see is that some people are here in this journey right now to actually wake up, right? And to actually find themselves. And some people don't get that opportunity, and that's okay, because they're going to come back. They'll
Mm,
come back another time around to find that out. So that's the first thing, is that we're all one. And that the second thing that I learned that was the greatest lesson that I think all of us could learn is that everything we've ever wanted is inside of ourselves.
mm.
And we don't need the big houses. We don't need the big cars. We don't need the flashy stuff. We don't need the admiration. We need wonderful relationships. We need love. And yeah, if you can make great money and also have that, get ready, because life's going to be freaking awesome.
I love that. That is so true. Okay, my second question.
Yeah.
If you could share only one, you've got all these great revelations for your life, but only one piece of advice that you could tell your younger self, what would it be?
I can't do that because it's too profound and it's going to mess people up. I can't do that. So I'll tell you the second greatest thing that I would tell people. I would tell
Will it
myself.
mess people up?
Yeah, because it has to do with religion. I just don't want to go there. Um, okay, so what would be the second thing that I would tell myself? Yeah, is I would tell myself that everything that I would tell myself this. I would tell myself everything that I'm chasing in money, in cars, in women, in pornography, in food, everything that I'm looking for out there,
Hmm.
and being known and liked because I'm successful, and being known and liked because I wear nice things, and being known and liked because I drive a nice car, and being known and liked because I'm powerful. Everything that I'm looking for out there the whole time has been in here,
Mm.
has been in here. And I would tell my youngest self, though I wouldn't be ready to listen, by the way, but I would tell my youngest self, the moment that you realize that everything that you're looking for out there is in here, get ready, because that's when life really begins. And honest to God, Lorraine, I feel like I'm 3 years old,
I
because
love it.
it just started. It all just
It's
started.
interesting you say 3 years old because that is an openness as well, right? Because there's a curiosity to life when you're that young. We lose it along the way with all of the narratives and the storytelling that we put on top of that child. So it's actually interesting that you use the word three because there's a curiosity to life at that age. I love watching young
Right?
children who have no opinion. Okay, my
That's
last
right.
question, in which you may have actually already answered, but the last question is, what do you believe is the most powerful thing that a human can have and why?
Yeah, I don't believe I know.
Okay.
I don't like using the word believe. And that's my own journey and probably my own BS that I
All
need to
right,
work through.
Danny, let me
You
rephrase
know?
the question, shall I?
No, no, no. Let
Danny,
me say
what do
that. It's
you
because,
know?
yeah, yeah. No, it's because, no, honest to God, it's because, it's because that word is used to manipulate people,
Okay.
you know? It really is. And if you think about it, believe leaves room for untruth. There's room there.
Okay.
Just look at the word there. When you look at the word and you say the word believe, there's room for it to possibly not be true,
But I'm
right?
okay with that. I have an openness. So for
Let's do
me,
it.
I don't need to have things be so concrete as to know. I just have this openness to say, I believe this to be true as it stands in my life today. But I have an openness to explore the fact that my life is not static in that way. Right?
Fair enough.
You had a belief when you were younger that this was it, this was the way, this is what and you were able, because it was a belief, you were able to shift that belief. And so I think
Yeah,
that having that openness and not having to know is can be powerful in my opinion.
for sure. For sure. I will accept that.
Okay.
So what was the question again? Tell me again.
Oh, what's the question? Okay, the question is, what do
What do you
you
believe?
know slash
What do you
believe
know?
is the
Uh-huh.
most powerful thing a human can have and why?
It's a connection to their heart.
Mm, love that.
And because it's a reconnecting to who you were before you came here and who you are after. And when you can reconnect to your heart, you reconnect to the peace that you've been searching for, even when you were in your mother's womb. And that's what most of us are searching for, because we were safe, we were comforted, we were cared for, and we were
Hmm.
loved. We were loved in that space. And when you reconnect to your heart, in a profound way, that's what you return to. It's a that sort of peace.
I
So yeah.
love that. The heart is my favorite organ as far as anatomy is concerned. I actually have gold foiled pictures of the heart in my home. And I always call the heart the alpha and the omega, right? It is the beginning of life before there was a mind to construct, right? The first thing you heard in the womb was a heartbeat. And that heartbeat didn't have an identity or who they were going to be or anything. It just was a source of life. And no matter what disease, no matter what processes happen in your life, your heart has to stop for you to say this experience is now over. And it has an intelligence that is independent of who we are. It will beat independent of who we think that we are. And so I love that you said that, because the heart to me, in its anatomy and in its figurative way, is such a beautiful and powerful thing that shows life, if you really, really observe it, that it is just greater
Huh?
than self.
Yeah, and Lorraine, by the way, thank you for sharing that. That was beautiful. And I want to take it a step further. What if I was to tell you it's time to trip out?
Okay.
What if I was to tell you, I'm 45 right now. What if I was to tell you that up until I was 43 years old, that my heart was closed?
I would believe that.
And what if I were to tell you that I had a physical experience where my entire heart chakra started opening and I felt this warmth and numbness in my entire body radiating from here?
Mm.
And what if I was to tell you that 90% of humanity is also living with a closed heart?
I believe that.
Now you know why I do the work that I do.
I believe it and I love it. And it's very, very, I feel like we're cut from the same cloth in many ways, but it's very much in alignment with how I think and feel. So I do believe
Oh,
that.
awesome.
Yeah.
Come to awaken. I swear to you, your mind will be blown.
I am
And
definitely going to receive that invitation, and I appreciate it.
beautiful, beautiful.
Well,
Sounds good.
Danny, I thank you so much. You are a beautiful soul, a beautiful being. I thank you for your enlightened conversation. I love having these types of conversations. And I know, again, that you're very busy. So for you to take the time out to speak with me, someone you have not met yet, um,
Yeah.
I appreciate it. And I appreciate you. So thank you so much. And for those of you out there who have not yet experienced or heard of Mr. Danny Morel, please go to his website, go to all his social media. He's everywhere. You Google him, you'll find him. You definitely want to hear what this man has to share. And also, if you're open and you're in Dallas, or if you need to go to the relationship mastery, check his website out and you will definitely feel fulfilled with anything he shares. So, Danny, thank you so much again. I really appreciate you.
Thank you as well.
And thank you guys for watching. Again, if you have not subscribed, do not forget to hit the subscription button. And until next time, ciao.